We need fresh energy, not tired old men like you. My name is Thomas. I'm 62 years old, and I've been head of operations at Hologate Systems for 27 years. When Chad Donnelly said those words to me in the conference room, I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him, sitting there in his slim-fit pants and expensive sneakers, and I knew something had shifted forever. Chad was Victor Hanley's nephew. Victor owned Hologate Systems, a mid-sized manufacturing company in Springfield, Missouri. But what Chad did next, it sparked a fire he couldn't put out. Stay tuned to Jake's Revenge to find out how this unfolded. Victor had mentioned his nephew might join the company, but I never expected this. Chad walked into my office that Tuesday morning with 2 security guards and a cardboard box. "Consider this your early retirement," he said, grinning like he'd just solved world hunger. "Pack up your personal items. You have 30 minutes. I had trained half the management team running this place. I streamlined production processes, saved millions in efficiency improvements, and never once received a formal complaint. My performance reviews were spotless. But none of that mattered to Chad. Want to know what happened when I fought back? Keep watching Jake's Revenge for the shocking twist. I packed my desk slowly. My leather planner, a Christmas gift from my wife Helen 15 years ago. The framed photo of my grandkids from last summer. A coffee mug my daughter brought from her college graduation. Chad watched from the doorway, tapping his foot impatiently. "Nothing personal," he said. "Just business. This company needs to move into the modern era." I nodded and walked toward the exit. But as I passed his office later, I heard him on the phone, laughing. "Yeah, I just cleared out the deadweight. These old guys don't understand technology anyway. Time to bring in some real talent." That evening, I sat in my garage workshop, thinking. Something about this felt wrong. Not just unfair, wrong in a deeper way. I'd been with Hologate Systems since Chad was probably in elementary school. I knew every process, every client relationship, every regulatory requirement. You don't toss that aside for fresh energy. Helen found me there around 9 p.m., still in my work clothes, staring at a box of files I'd brought home over the years. Company manuals, training documents, client correspondence. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Just trying to figure out what really happened today," I said. But deep down, I knew this was bigger than one fired employee. Chad had that look, the look of someone who thought rules didn't apply to him. I started at Hologate Systems in 1998, fresh out of a divorce, looking for stability. Victor Hanley hired me as a floor supervisor, and I worked my way up through dedication and competence. No shortcuts, no politics, just solid work. Victor was a good boss, fair, straightforward, and he appreciated loyalty. When his first operations manager retired in 2005, Victor promoted me without hesitation. "Thomas," he said, "you understand this business better than anyone. The job is yours." Over the years, I became Victor's right hand. When we expanded into automotive parts manufacturing, I managed the transition. When we had quality control issues with a major client, I fixed them personally. When younger employees needed guidance, I provided it without complaint. My relationship with Victor was built on mutual respect. He trusted my judgment, and I delivered results. We rarely socialized outside work, but there was an understanding. I wasn't just an employee, I was part of what made Hologate Systems successful. Chad, on the other hand, was a mystery. Victor mentioned him occasionally over the past year. "My sister's boy is finishing his MBA," he'd say. "Might bring him in to learn the business." I assumed that meant starting at the bottom, learning operations, understanding how things worked. I was wrong. Chad arrived 3 weeks ago with the title of Executive Vice President. No experience in manufacturing, no knowledge of our processes, no relationships with our clients. But he had ideas, big ideas about disrupting workflows and leveraging digital transformation. In our first meeting, he interrupted me twice while I explained the production schedule. "Thomas," he said, "I appreciate your institutional knowledge, but we need to think bigger, more aggressively." I started noticing small things after that. Chad would walk past my office without acknowledging me. He held meetings with department heads but didn't invite me. When I tried to discuss client deadlines, he waved me off. "Handle it however you think best," he said, but his tone suggested he wasn't listening. Last Friday, I overheard him talking to Jennifer from Human Resources. "We need to assess whether our current leadership structure is aligned with company objectives," he said. The words sounded rehearsed, like something from a business school textbook. That same day, he'd been asking about employee files, ages, salaries, years of service. Jennifer looked uncomfortable when he requested personnel records for strategic planning. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. But I trusted Victor, and I assumed family loyalty meant something. I assumed experience and competence still mattered. I was wrong about that too. The call came at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. "Thomas, this is Victor. Can you come in early today? Chad wants to meet with you." Something in Victor's voice sounded off, strained, like he was reading from a script. I arrived at 7:30 a.m. The parking lot was mostly empty except for Chad's red Tesla and Victor's pickup truck. When I walked into the building, Jennifer from Human Resources was there, looking nervous. She avoided eye contact. Chad was waiting in the conference room with two men I didn't recognize, security guards, based on their uniforms and the way they stood by the door. "Thomas, please sit down," Chad said. His voice was different, more formal, more distant. I sat. Jennifer handed me a folder. After careful consideration of our operational needs and strategic direction, Chad began, "We've decided to restructure our management team. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately." I opened the folder. Termination paperwork, a severance package, legal documents with language I'd need time to understand. "This decision is based on business requirements, not performance," Jennifer added quickly. "Your years of service are appreciated." But Chad couldn't help himself. As I reviewed the papers, he leaned back and smiled. "Look, Thomas, I'm sure you understand. We need fresh energy here, new perspectives. This industry is changing fast, and we can't afford to have tired old men sitting on decades of dust." That phrase hit like a physical blow. Tired old men. I looked at him, 26, maybe 27, expensive haircut, designer glasses, the confidence of someone who's never had to prove himself. He was enjoying this. "I understand," I said quietly. But as I signed the papers and gathered my belongings, my mind was working. Chad had made a mistake, not just in firing me, but in how he did it, the words he used, the casual cruelty of it. I walked out of Hollowgate Systems that morning, carrying a cardboard box and 27 years of knowledge. But I also carried something else, a clear understanding of what had happened. This wasn't about restructuring or strategic direction. This was about a young man who wanted to erase the people who built the company before he arrived. I drove home slowly, thinking about that phrase, tired old men. Chad had said it with such satisfaction, such certainty that he was right. He had no idea what he'd just started. I spent Wednesday reading through my severance paperwork. The more I studied, the more questions I had. The termination was listed as position elimination due to restructuring, but my responsibilities were being distributed among existing staff. That wasn't elimination, it was replacement. Thursday morning, I called Jennifer from Human Resources. Jennifer, this is Thomas. I have questions about my termination paperwork. Thomas, I'm sorry, but I can't discuss personnel matters over the phone. You'd need to speak with Chad directly. I'm not asking for personnel information. I'm asking why my position was eliminated when the work is still being done. Long pause. I really can't help you with that. But her voice told me everything. She was uncomfortable with what had happened. Friday morning, I drove to Hollowgate Systems and requested a meeting with Victor. The receptionist said he was busy, but I waited. After 2 hours, Victor agreed to see me. Thomas, I'm sorry about how things went down, he said. But Chad is family, and he has innovative ideas for moving the company forward. Victor, we've worked together for almost 3 decades. I deserve better than this. I know, but business is business. Chad thinks we need younger leadership to compete in the modern marketplace. There was something hollow in Victor's voice, like he was repeating someone else's words. Did Chad recommend firing me specifically? I asked. Victor looked away. The decision was made at the executive level. What executive level? Chad's been here 3 weeks. Thomas, I think it's best if we just move forward. Your severance package is generous. You can collect unemployment. Maybe it's time to actually retire. I left that meeting knowing I'd lost more than a job. I'd lost a relationship I thought meant something. That weekend, I ran into Bill Patterson at the hardware store. Bill was 61, lead quality inspector for 15 years. He looked tired. Hey, Thomas, heard what happened. I'm sorry. Thanks, Bill. How are things at the plant? Bill glanced around, then lowered his voice. Not good. Chad called me into his office yesterday, told me I need to modernize my approach or consider retirement. Said quality inspection needs fresh thinking. My stomach dropped. What did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it, but Thomas, I can't afford to retire yet. My wife's medical bills, the mortgage, I need this job for at least 5 more years. I drove home thinking about Bill. If Chad was targeting him too, this wasn't about my performance or attitude. This was systematic. Sunday evening, my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Mr. Ridley, this is Harold Walsh. I was the night shift supervisor at Hollowgate until yesterday. Harold was 63, steady, reliable, 20 years at the company. Let me guess, I said. Chad eliminated your position. How'd you know? Lucky guess. What reason did he give? Said night shift supervision could be handled by day shift management. More efficient. But Thomas, they still need someone there at night. The machines don't run themselves. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, making a list. 3 men over 60, all terminated within 1 week, all with decades of experience, all replaced by younger employees or eliminated positions. This wasn't coincidence. Monday morning, I called Harold and Bill. We agreed to meet at Murphy's Diner on Tuesday to compare notes. Murphy's was a small place downtown, far enough from the plant for privacy. Harold arrived first, looking older than I remembered. Bill came in 10 minutes later, carrying a manila folder. I brought copies of my termination paperwork, Bill said. Figured we might want to compare. We spread the documents across the table. The similarities were striking. All 3 terminations were listed as position elimination due to restructuring. All cited changing business requirements. All offered identical severance packages based on years of service. But there was something else. The paperwork was dated and signed on the same day, the Monday before any of us were fired. They planned this, Harold said quietly. All three of us. Same day. I studied the signatures. Chad's was on all three documents. But there was another signature, Jennifer from Human Resources. Her handwriting looked shaky, uncertain. There's something else, Bill said. My buddy Kevin in maintenance told me Chad's been asking about other employees. Specifically, who else is over 55? How many people is that? I asked. Kevin thinks about 12, maybe 15. Harold pushed his coffee cup away. This is bigger than just us. That afternoon, I went to the public library and used their computer to research employment law. What I found was illuminating. Age discrimination was illegal under federal law for employees over 40. But proving it required evidence of systematic bias, not just individual complaints. The pattern was clear: 3 employees over 60, terminated within a week, all with good performance records. If Chad was targeting other older employees, this was the kind of evidence lawyers looked for. I made copies of our paperwork and drove home to think. That evening, Helen found me in the garage workshop, surrounded by papers. What are you working on? She asked. Building a case against Chad, against the company. Chad made a mistake. He got greedy. 3 of us at once was sloppy. Helen sat on my workbench stool. What are you going to do? I'm going to call some lawyers. See if anyone's interested in an age discrimination case. Thomas, are you sure about this? Victor's been good to you over the years. Victor had a chance to make this right. He chose Chad instead. Wednesday morning, I made calls. The first 3 lawyers weren't interested. Age discrimination cases were hard to prove, they said. Too much risk for uncertain outcomes. The 4th lawyer was different. Mr. Ridley, my name is Patricia Coleman. I specialize in employment discrimination cases. Can you tell me more about your situation? I explained everything: the 3 terminations, the identical paperwork, Chad's comments about tired old men and fresh energy. Did anyone witness those comments? She asked. Jennifer from Human Resources was in the room when he said it to me. The security guards too. Mr. Ridley, I'd like to meet with you and the other terminated employees. This sounds like a pattern worth investigating. After I hung up, I called Harold and Bill. Gentlemen, I said, we have a lawyer. Patricia Coleman's office was in downtown Springfield, on the 3rd floor of an old brick building. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Harold, Bill, and I sat across from her desk while she reviewed our paperwork. She made notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking about dates and procedures. Gentlemen, you have a strong case, she said finally. 3 employees over 60, terminated within days, with identical documentation prepared in advance. And Mr. Ridley, those comments about tired old men constitute direct evidence of age bias. What do we need to do? Bill asked. First, we file complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That's required before a federal lawsuit. Second, we gather more evidence. If Chad is targeting other older employees, we need to document that pattern. Patricia handed us each a business card. Don't discuss this case with anyone at Hollowgate Systems. Don't post about it on social media. If anyone from the company contacts you, refer them to me. Over the next 2 weeks, word got out quietly. Kevin from maintenance called Bill to say 2 more older employees had been terminated: Susan Rivers from accounting, 58, and Frank Morrison from shipping, 61. Both terminations followed the same pattern: position elimination due to restructuring, identical severance packages, paperwork dated before the firing. Patricia was interested in Susan and Frank, but we needed more evidence of Chad's intent. That evidence came from an unexpected source. Jennifer from Human Resources called me on a Thursday evening. "Thomas, I need to talk to someone. Are you free tomorrow for coffee?" We met at a small cafe near her neighborhood. Jennifer looked tired and stressed. "I can't keep doing this," she said. "What Chad's asking me to do, it's wrong." "What's he asking you to do?" "He gave me a list of employees to review. All of them over 55. He wants me to find performance issues, attendance problems, anything to justify termination." She pulled a folded paper from her purse. "I made a copy before I turned in my resignation this morning." The list had 17 names, all employees over 55, with notes about salaries, years of service, and replacement costs. At the bottom, Chad had written priority targets for Q2 restructuring. "Jennifer, would you be willing to talk to my lawyer about this?" "I already called her. We have a meeting set up for Monday." That weekend, I got another call, this time from Victor. "Thomas, I need to ask you something. Have you been talking to lawyers?" "Why do you ask?" "Chad's worried about potential legal issues. He wants to know if any terminated employees are causing problems." "Victor, I think you need to have a serious conversation with your nephew about employment law." "Is that a threat?" "No, it's advice from someone who cares about what happens to Hologate Systems." Victor was quiet for a long moment. "Thomas, I never wanted this to happen, but Chad convinced me changes were necessary for the company to survive." "What changes?" "Firing experienced employees and replacing them with nobody?" "He said we needed to reduce labor costs and bring in fresh talent." "Victor, look around your plant. Who's training the fresh talent? Who's maintaining client relationships? Who knows how to run operations?" Another long pause. "I'm starting to realize I may have made a mistake." "It's not too late to fix it." "It might be," Victor said quietly. "Chad's been making decisions without consulting me. I'm not sure I have as much control as I thought." After that conversation, I knew Patricia was right. We had more than a strong case. We had a company in crisis and a young executive who thought he was untouchable. Time to prove him wrong. The lawsuit hit Hologate Systems on a Tuesday morning in March. Patricia filed the federal complaint with 5 plaintiffs: Harold, Bill, Susan, Frank, and me. By noon, local news trucks were parked outside the plant. Chad called an emergency meeting with all employees. I heard about it from Kevin, who still worked there. "Thomas, you should have seen his face," Kevin said. "White as a sheet." He kept talking about disgruntled former employees and frivolous lawsuits, but nobody was buying it. The real blow came when Jennifer testified at her deposition. Patricia scheduled it for Thursday morning at the courthouse. Chad's lawyers tried to claim her testimony was irrelevant, but she had documentation, the list of targeted employees, email chains discussing age optimization strategies, even a recording from her phone where Chad said older workers were dead weight dragging down productivity. Friday afternoon, Victor called me. "Thomas, I need to ask you something. If I made Chad resign and offered everyone their jobs back, would you consider dropping the lawsuit?" "Victor, it's not just about getting our jobs back anymore. Chad violated federal law. That has consequences." "I know, but Hologate Systems is my life's work. This lawsuit could destroy everything I built. You should have thought about that before you let your nephew run wild." Saturday morning, Patricia called with news. "Thomas, Hologate's insurance company just called. They want to discuss settlement terms. Their coverage doesn't extend to intentional discrimination, and they're concerned about exposure. What does that mean? It means Chad and the company are on their own financially, and Victor Hanley is starting to understand how expensive his nephew's decisions are going to be. The settlement negotiations lasted 2 weeks. Patricia was thorough: full back pay for all terminated employees, reinstatement offers for those who wanted them, punitive damages for the discrimination, and most importantly, Chad's immediate resignation with no severance package. I drove past Hollowgate Systems on a warm April morning, 3 months after my termination. The parking lot looked different. Chad's red Tesla was gone. Victor's pickup truck was still there, but it looked smaller somehow. Harold and Bill had taken their reinstatement offers. Frank decided to retire early with his settlement money. Susan used hers to start a consulting business. I chose differently. The settlement gave me enough to really retire. Helen and I bought a small cabin near the lake, where I could fish and work in my workshop without thinking about production schedules or client deadlines. Victor stopped by the cabin one evening in May. "Thomas, I owe you an apology. I let family loyalty cloud my judgment. How's the company doing?" "Struggling. We lost 2 major clients during the lawsuit. Turns out they weren't comfortable doing business with a company facing discrimination charges." "And Chad?" "Living with his parents in Kansas City, having trouble finding work. Word travels fast in business circles." Victor looked older than I remembered. The stress had aged him. "I should have listened to you from the beginning," he said. "Yeah, you should have." We sat quietly for a while, watching the sunset over the lake. Victor left around 8 p.m. I never saw him again. I heard Hollowgate Systems was sold to a larger company 6 months later. Victor retired with enough money to live comfortably, but without the legacy he'd hoped to leave his family. As for me, I learned something important about standing up for yourself. Even when the odds seem impossible, sometimes doing the right thing costs everyone involved. But that doesn't make it any less right. Age and experience taught me patience, but they also taught me when patience was no longer enough. Thanks for watching Jake's Revenge. Subscribe for more stories of justice and comeuppance.